yours.
I really
Live from the Mighty Veedverks Airship, I'm Travis Lippert, CEO of Verks Unlimited Limited, better known as Veedverks.
And I'm Julie Richardson.
And today we are here with Stacey Linn and Michelle Walker and Amber Wann and Cindy Sovine. And instead of just talking about it, I'll show them to you. Boom.
Boom. Okay.
Powerhouse of canon knowledge right now. So we're going to talk about some very like brand new type of political stuff that's going on in Colorado. That's not a very, I should have thought about how I was going to say that before, but we're going to talk about autism, opioids, social consumption, delivery, the Sunset Review that's coming up, and then combining med and rec if we got time. And so I'm going to try and shut up now. And if you wouldn't mind, just give us a brief introduction of yourselves, and I'll mess around with the music, and then talk about some autism.
We'll do that. Why don't we start with Cindy and end with Stacey, and Stacey can explain what the chapter is, and then we can flip-flop around. What you think? That works?
Start with Cindy?
Yes.
Sure. Okay. What do you want me to talk about?
Well, you're Cindy Sovine with...
Well,
just introductions.
Yeah, just introduce yourself.
That's perfect. Thank you. Okay. I'm Cindy Sovine, Sovine Consulting, lobbyist. I'm a member of Americans for Safer Access and also the CEO of Utopia All Natural Wellness Spa and Lounge, a social consumption venue hoping to appear soon near you.
Awesome. I'm Amber Wann, a parent advocate for cannabis, medical cannabis. Also a chapter member of the Americans for Safe Access here in Colorado. And I'm getting my voice back, so...
Hi, I'm Michelle Walker. I am a mother first and foremost to a child with autism and epilepsy. I am the communications director for Mama USA and the Colorado chapter leader for Mama as well, Mothers Advocating Medical Marijuana for Autism. I'm also one of the founding members of Safe Access Colorado.
I'm Stacey Linn. I am the executive director and founder of Cannability Foundation. We help kids who are seeking access to medical marijuana, and we work with fine folks like this to ensure that patients have safe access through our legislative process.
I neglected to say at the beginning that the main thing that we're going to talk about is Americans for Safe Access. You guys are opening a local chapter of Americans for Safe Access, and it's called, I believe I tagged it properly, Colorado for Safe Access is the chapter. And so let's...
and we need to mention Melanie.
Oh, yeah. Melanie
yeah.
Rose Rogers from Influential X would be here if she weren't somewhere else.
Yeah, and she's the one that I believe rallied everybody together and
she really did.
Got this going. And what a flippin' brilliant idea.
Yeah.
You know, with the power behind each one of you, you know, is incredible. But to combine it, you know, there was a paragraph in the Westward article on it, and she said, we're stronger together. No, this is, holy cow, Batman, stronger together. And so I'm excited, you know, because Veedverks is always at the Capitol. And so being able to have all of your information, be able to cross-market, share, inform, and use it as a way to unite is just like, yeah.
The nice thing is that we can unite under a national umbrella,
right?
Not just Colorado, but we do have a local chapter, but we will get a lot of national support when we're at the Capitol. We get a little more uplift out of being the typical activists that they're tired of seeing to now we're coming in from Americans for Safe Access.
Well, in what I like about this is, you know, pushback would be, well, don't we have a national organization? Yes, we do. But, you know, I love NORML, but this is more patient oriented.
It's only medical.
Yeah. And, you know, with nonprofits, it's all about, combining efforts and working together in partnerships. So I think this is just fabulous. And we start this year with this year's legislation of, and that's your baby.
Well, session starts tomorrow. Tomorrow is the first day of the 2019 legislative session. We've had a pretty big turnover I think, in the legislature. And tomorrow we have two really, really important bills dropping. We have the Cannabis for Autism bill and Cannabis for Opiates. They're so important, both of them in their own right. So for your viewers that may not know, autism passed by a huge landslide last year. I think almost 90%. But then the governor vetoed it. And he gave us a lot of reasons why, but none of them really made sense. So everyone throughout the summer and the fall, all the legislators, they'd come up to me and say, I support you guys, let's come back, let's come back. So our amazing sponsor, Rep. Edie Hooten, said, this is my first bill, and we got to do it right now, straight out of the gate. She doesn't want to waste any more time. And neither does Governor Polis. He told us this last year as well. So we're super excited. Tomorrow's our first day. It gets filed, and we're ready to rock and roll. We do have some education to do. You know, we need to go and talk with the new reps and senators that came in and give them a little peek into what autism entails, because it is much more complex than a lot of people understand. Right. And opiates, which is the whole way the bill even got started last year, is such an important piece as well. And I think Cindy can really do that topic some justice.
Yeah, opiates. So the bill will be drafted this year back to any condition for which an opioid is prescribed. The one difference that you will see from the bill last year was that it was any condition for which an opioid was prescribed for pain. We just struck the word pain and left it at any condition for which an opioid is prescribed. That was a little bigger.
So this is interesting because part of the controversy last year about whether it was chronic or you know, and as far as I know in my body that, you know, if I get an injury, I immediately up my dose to it's an anti-inflammatory,
right?
You know, so is that language in any part of this?
No. So when we added PTSD to the list of conditions, we created what you could essentially call a statutory medical marijuana program that parallels the constitutional medical marijuana program, because CDPHE was not willing
Colorado
to budge.
Department of Public Health and the Environment.
Thank you. The Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment had several years, many, actually close to 20, to put PTSD on the list of conditions, and they did nothing. And so in 2017, that piece of legislation moved forward and passed. And this year we sought to add to that model in the 2018, and that, you know, as Michelle said, autism made it all the way to the governor in very high regard, and then was vetoed. And then opioids struggled a little bit. They actually started as the same bill last year, and then they were split. And, you know, the truth about opioids is that when you think about what the issues are that are happening with cannabis right now politically, and you follow the money, there are two people that suffer the most in the status quo that cannabis disrupts. And the first is hospitals, because hospitals don't make money off of people who are at home managing their condition with a plant. And the second is pharmaceutical companies. And opioids disrupts the status quo on everything for the pharmaceutical industry, because that's their bread and butter. So from that bill, it has a huge upheaval, but it's also coming at a time where there are so many deaths that it's just absolutely undeniable that it's a deadly option when there's a safer alternative that works for so many and so many different forms of being able to take that. So,
well, isn't the statistics in Colorado going down dramatically on opioid overdose? And I mean, isn't it like
in states that have legalized marijuana, I think it's pretty well known now that opioid use goes down in states that have at least medical cannabis program. We're in Colorado. The way it works in Colorado, and maybe you could take it from me after this, but when they passed medical marijuana, they started off with 8 conditions that you had to get a prescription, 8 conditions that would qualify for a medical marijuana card. And I think that pretty much about the time I met all of you was when PTSD was added as the 9th qualifying condition. And then, you know, so now we're going to be able to, when we're talking about the opioids, it's to say that, so it's in place of opioids for pain.
If your doctor is recommending you an opioid, then you should be able to take that prescription and go and get that as reason to get a cannabis recommendation for whatever the condition is that they're treating, based on the way that the bill is drafted, in my opinion.
So you can't just move here for whatever ails you that you know that cannabis helps with. There are tons of things and get a medical card with the current system. So we have to add these things one at a time. And then other states have taken the approach where wasn't Oklahoma's initial language just for doctors can prescribe?
It still is upon a doctor's recommendation, and I really feel that that's appropriate. If we're entrusting and expecting these doctors to recommend and write prescriptions for these specific conditions, why can't they recommend and write prescriptions for whatever they deem necessary? By not allowing these doctors to recommend for anything that they think is appropriate, we're telling them that legislators know medicine better than they do, and it's a really confusing message to me.
We trust them. Doctors. Yeah, we trust. Well, apparently we trust the doctors enough to recommend for these conditions, but we don't trust them on other conditions. So why is that? Why are we okay?
Right.
It may, and again, it puts it into a legislator's hand or a rulemaker's hand.
Has anybody talked about bringing forward a bill that would make Colorado like Oklahoma?
I think everyone hopes of it.
Mark Pedersen has an initiative to just make it legal food product.
I like that.
Just knock it all out and say it is what it is right there. Screw the doctors and everything, basically.
What I think is interesting, the reason that we're going about this legislatively, is that CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, has never added another qualifying condition since the existence of Colorado's medical marijuana program. That's 18 years. So we're not trying to spit in anyone's face or insult them, but the system doesn't work. The system isn't working. And so that's why we have to go about it legislatively. And we're really hopeful for what's going to happen this year. There's some more things that are important to us as well. Something that's important to me that a lot of people may not realize is having social use. Social use is more than just retail recreational cannabis. Think about it. A lot of us rent our homes and rent our apartments. And every lease I've seen has said no cannabis, no marijuana at all. So I'm a medical refugee. I moved here from Texas, and I'm not allowed to use cannabis in my home. Where do I go to use it? Where can I legally go?
There you go.
I know it's a loaded term, but we've been here. Next year will be 2 years, or next month will be 2 years.
Cool.
So where do people go to use their cannabis as a medical patient? So we have veterans going out into their alley because they have nowhere they can smoke their cannabis. Then they're getting ticketed, and they're going to lose their housing. They're going to lose their benefits.
And then what if you have children in the house? Did you want to lose your child to Child Protective Services because you're a medical patient? So then where are we supposed to go?
Yeah.
Right.
And everybody's so mad about all the people smoking weed all over the streets. It's like, well, I got a solution for you. Let them do it inside.
Yeah, somewhere to go.
Yeah.
Easy.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I mean, that's to me what Utopia represents, is a place for patients, but everybody, because I actually believe that there are a lot of people that don't have access through the current system for a variety of treating their own conditions, and to be able to give people a place to go where they can learn about what's going on and access people that can help them and each other and do things that they enjoy together. And I'm certainly not alone. There are so many others that are interested in doing this, and it's time that we carve the space, because if we don't, we're going to continue to see what it looks like when it's dealt for us, and it's not something that's functional or helpful for anybody. In fact, hurtful. So what's happening this year, and this is important for our audience to know, is that there is going to be an attempt to add vaping to the Clean Indoor Air Act, which will pretty much take out all consumption of any kind that's not in some sort of edible form. And that would make it illegal in every place to do that. I mean, that is the way that the Clean Indoor Air Act works. So that's everything from your vape pens to dabbing to everything. So that's what is on the horizon.
How about lotions?
Well, I don't know. If you're smoking them, You can't. But if you're applying them,
Oh,
I
I
think
get,
you're
I get
okay.
what you're saying though, because the scent from the lotion might be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That does
yeah,
make
yeah,
sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, particularly
Or-
like our soothing and our invigorating
Or
lotions.
eating, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
any of it. I'm with you. I
Eating
feel
garlic.
like we need to stand up for our rights and give people a place to go to consume. And whether you're, you know, somebody that consumes by an edible, or you vape, or you dab, or you like to smoke flower, you shouldn't be confined to nowhere and having the only option being to break the law, because that doesn't make sense. And we shouldn't be putting people in jail for these types of things. It is time, with all of the tax revenue that the state is making off of the backs of these consumers, which is something that is never talked about when they talk about all these tax revenue that goes to all of the different agencies and what it's funding. It's funding off of people, everyday people, grown ass adults who are buying products and forced to consume in private or away from the doors, and treated as though they are criminals, and that's
Right,
not
so you
what's
can
supposed
legally
to be happening.
purchase and consume marijuana,
Right.
but you can't. No, you can. Yeah, you can legally purchase and consume it, but if you get caught consuming it, you're in jail.
Right.
And think
Right.
about the people that visit here.
Tourists.
Tourists have nowhere to consume
Nowhere.
cannabis legally.
Can't do it in your rental car. Can't do it in
a
your
park.
hotel room. Can't do it in the park. But please buy it, and you can't take it home. I mean, we know it's happening because everybody's complaining. The downtown businesses are complaining that everybody's smoking outside in their shops, right? And there are solutions to that. There are places you can get them for people to
There
go.
are country
And
songs
wouldn't
to
it
write
make
about this.
You know, and if people are like so
Confined
upset
to
about
nowhere.
the idea of potheads everywhere, well, why just confine us to buildings?
This is what-
Put us in building. We'll be out of your hair.
This
Just
is-
go ahead. We'll
And then
be happy
the
there.
buses are under attack. You know.
Oh
The,
yeah.
the buses are under attack. Everything.
I mean,
Yes.
yeah. So it's just like from an
So,
infrastructure. Look at
We
it's
know
like,
there are a lot of companies in Colorado or in Denver for sure that where you can get on a bus and consume cannabis and go cruise around the city, or you can arrange a tour that'll take you to like a grow and a dispensary, and you can consume the whole time on that. There are public, like you can rent a bus, or a limo even, and consume on that, and like go to Red Rocks. And so I mean, there are a lot of interesting things you can do, you know, in the back of a bus in Colorado. And after this, I think it was after the New Year's special where like Elena was on there.
oh yeah, yeah.
And CNN went on one of these buses, and it was controversial. And I think it was shortly after that, after being fine with it this whole time, cops jumped onto one of these buses and issued everybody on the bus a ticket. And it's
Arrested
so that's
some of them.
just
Yeah.
to provide the
So
background
just,
on when we tend to, because we always talk about this stuff.
Right.
We just talk about the buses, and we all know what that means. But I mean,
It's also important to talk about the reality without providing safe regulated spaces is that we become a society of speakeasy where we're underground, where there's not ventilation, where there's not regulation, where there's nobody monitoring for intoxication or making sure that, you know, you're not overserved. We're completely ignoring our responsibility to do this the right way, and we have to look at whether or not we lose these opportunities from a business standpoint to other states as they're doing this. So one of the things that I'm working on, I forgot to tell you, but it's called Social Use Avengers, socialuseavengers.com.
Nice.
We're putting forward statewide legislation that is talking about social use, and it creates 2 licenses, one that's non-sales and one that's sales related, but both that allow for consumption establishments. And it is open for everyone to participate from a social equity standpoint, not just the existing industry, but anyone that meets the qualifications for monitoring intoxication and health and safety and all of the basic requirements that are there, they would be eligible for a license. The other thing that the bill is going to do is remove that tiny little rule that the Department of Revenue did in sleight of hand in 2016 that banned alcohol from being able to play in the social consumption world. they did that with the legislature never even being able to see it. They had no idea that it happened. It went through, and that would be able to allow everybody to play legitimately. We would no longer have to segregate consumers and put people in different spaces, but allow different people access to it. And so social use of vendors is about making good policy and being inclusive of everyone, making sure everyone is able to be at the table. If you think about it, banning the alcohol industry from participating makes no sense at all, because they're actually the most qualified to work with people and monitor intoxication and know what they're looking for and how much they're serving and what they're doing. Like, they're the ones that have been doing this for years and years and years, and we're about to, you know, just give it away to industry that's very good at selling the product, but that doesn't make them qualified to, you know, necessarily monitor it. So we have to create these cannabis hospitality licenses, because that's part of it, which is like why it's open to everybody.
A bartender.
Right, exactly. Right. So if you think about the limited sales model, it would be like to buy and consume on site, similar to what you would do within a bar. You would have that same model versus a non-sales model, which might look like a hotel, it might look like a spa, it might look like whatever. But it could have all of, or any of the above, any combination. And if it's left to the locals, which is local government control, which is a requirement here in the state, then it will be able to be used by whatever the local government wants. So if they don't want more sales, or they don't want sales at all, they might still want the non-sales option. So I don't know. It's definitely happening. And then
something I think interesting about all the topics we've talked about so far is none of these concepts are revolutionary to Colorado. These are all things already happening in other states. Autism's already a qualifying condition, so is opiates. Other places have social consumption. They have delivery.
Yeah,
and that was going to be something I bring up next, is delivery. That's another huge issue. And we're not reinventing the wheel. We're no longer revolutionary in this regard. In fact, we're falling behind.
Absolutely. Oh, you are so
by
right.
delivery, what we mean is that in Colorado, you cannot just have somebody bring you cannabis, and in California, you can. Is that right?
You can have your weed delivered.
Yeah.
And this is I think a lot of people think of that as a recreational issue, but it's also a really big patient issue. If I had had that when Jack was alive, my life would have been so much better, because I have a child that I can't take into a dispensary, and he was on a ventilator and in need so I can't just leave him with somebody. How am I supposed to get his medication? So there was this giant panic every time I started running out of medication, because sometimes I'd be trapped in the house. I couldn't move Jack if I wanted to. So how do I get his medicine? I can't just say, hey, can you drop off some weed? You know, well, salves, creams, tinctures, all that. But if parents had this, parents of kids with special needs, or a caregiver to an elderly person, that they can't leave the house. This is a huge service for patients, as well as I know a lot of people with severe PTSD can't leave their house, and they do depend on other people. And if they're not using the caregiver system, caregivers can, but if they're using a dispensary, how are they supposed to get their medicine?
Well, another issue with that too was our rural people. You know.
Yeah, and then how they live 100 miles away from a dispensary,
and
they can
possibly disabled. I mean,
right.
Or everybody's parents at this point, right?
It really is.
I mean, you know.
Absolutely.
But you brought up something. You know, when I talk to people in Louisiana that are doing legislation, you know, they're no longer looking at Colorado. Colorado isn't under the microscope. You know, and you know. I really have high hopes for this governor, you know, and with the people who've been voted into office and who we have to work with. You know, I think that we can turn this Colorado's lagging behind to Colorado's leading again, you know.
Speaking of lagging behind, I want to make sure that as the sun lags, I was going to try and describe something about a sunset, but I'm keeping track of the time.
Oh, that's right. We have another
like
subject.
some kind of clever segue into. I want to make sure that we talk about the sunset review that's coming up, and also combining med and rec, because we've gotten some comments here about that. So anyway, sorry to interrupt, but what is the sunset review that they're? Who do I ask?
Okay, I can take it. So the marijuana statutes, both medical and retail, they go through what is a sunset process, and it started out, I think, at 5 years. I think it was then changed or modified, but either way, both of them are up for review. And what that means is they went through an 18-month now long process through the Department of Regulatory Agencies. Brian Tobias was the staffer who worked on it. He reached out to a number of stakeholders, the physicians, the patient community, industry, everybody, and talked with them at length about recommendations on how to improve and what to do. And then he released his report to the General Assembly on what changes he thinks should be made when the changes occur and the statutes fall off and the new ones need to be enacted. So that's essentially what the Sunset Report is, and what the Sunset Bill will do is it takes his recommendations that came into the report that was put together in October and outlines them into one big legislative bill. And those recommendations will then be introduced as legislation that will be debated like any other bill. So they will have committee hearings, and they will go through the first reading, which is the committee hearing, and then second reading, and then third reading on the floor before moving through. But that is a big issue that has the best way to think of it is like a Christmas tree, where there's so many things that can be done. You will likely see everybody trying to put their little ornament on it. Oh, we should do this, or we should do that, or we should try to do this, or we should try to do that, which means we need to have a watchful eye as a community on what's happening with that bill in order to make sure that nothing detrimental to impacting anybody occurs. So
I think one of the biggest things that we need to watchdog is the recommendation that we combine medical and recreational.
Yes.
And what that means.
Yes.
I've heard both, that, well, I've heard a lot of fear about that, meaning that there will be no more medical patients, that we're just going to have one system. To the other side of it, which would be maintaining the medical system so that you still can have a card, but really it would just be combining storefronts so that the rules would be the same for medical and recreational, not all of them, but the business operational rules, which would cut a lot of costs for business, which could potentially be passed on to consumers. It would also cut the work for regulatory agencies. They don't have to regulate two separate things. But the thing that we have to be careful of, obviously, is I don't think we can tolerate getting rid of the medical program. I think medical program gives it the weight and credence that it should have. I know that not everyone can be included in that medical program because of the previous discussion about how we have limited conditions. Not everybody can get a card. But I think that if we are purporting that this is medicine, then that means we can't do away with the medical program. And I'm sure there are 5,000 different opinions on that, and they will all be at the Capitol.
That's why we have ASA, to unify, to work
right
together,
back to the beginning. Yes.
To educate, to really talk about these issues.
Yes.
Because ASA was here before. And once legalization happened, they were like, oh, we're good, but we're not. We've actually taken steps back. So that's why the unity now and with the sunset, that this is happening, this collaboration. So
I think you're really
so you
right.
get all the medical community on the same page and go present a combined, like work it out in subcommittee before you take it to the,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, to the best that we can, our community is very diverse and has, lots of opinions that have to be respected, but it is a process that's determined through a board and not driven by any one particular person or organization, which is what I think is important, and bringing everybody to the table to be able to have a voice and be able to be represented in their dialogue is what you need to do so that people are heard. And there's never, I think, been a year more pivotal to the medical program, in my opinion, since it passed in the Constitution. So this is very timely. Circling back to knowing where we're at on time, my call to action for all of you watching is that autism and opioids drop tomorrow. We are going to hit the ground running with these two bills. They're coming out first. We need your help. we need your help to make a strong showing now when it makes a difference, so that we have that same voice and that same showing and that same unified presence throughout the sunset to ensure that the things that we care about are preserved. It is very important to preserve medical for the card for a number of reasons. Child welfare. I mean,
Child welfare,
all
taxes,
you mom,
cost.
You know, there are limited employment protections, limited impaired driving protections as a patient with the levels in your system. And so that these are things that we have to take into consideration. We can't just throw out because we think it's more efficient. And I think that'll be an education process that we need the community involved in, and in a productive way. I don't think we have a malicious intent. I think it's just a lack of education that we have to address with helping people understand what it is, the benefits behind having a medical program, and what that actually looks like. So,
and you're going to post when you need people there on each of your pages, and then collectively on ACES.
Yeah, follow ASA. I think ideally everybody will be trying to post the information, but we'll be trying to get that information out there. We'll all be posting it individually. If you guys could repeat post it, what we need, you'll get contact information for the committees once the bills are assigned, and talking points on what they look like, or once they're given a hearing date, and things, what you can say to the committee members, basically. And we would encourage you to reach out to them. I mean, honestly, think about this. We need to ring that Capitol like a bell. We really do. We need to light it up, and we need to let them feel the vibration that we bring to the table with all of this. And we have to do that through a unified voice and as many people as possible getting involved. It's not me as a lobbyist that's going to be able to get anything done. It's you. It's all of you. It is everybody working together as a network that is what...
In case you don't think it makes a difference, it really does. Your one voice becomes 25 other voices as well. And, you know, one thing that we hear at the Capitol, we talk to aides a lot at the Capitol, and they get all this information from you, and they get 15 phone calls and 20 emails and a few letters. They tell that to the senator or the representative, and then your voice is heard. They can't ignore that. It becomes a very big deal. And then it becomes, people start talking about that. Yeah. They start talking about how many letters they've gotten, how many letters you get, how many letters did you get. That's because of what you do. We can go to the Capitol all the time, every day, and we can say it again and again, but they've heard us say it, and they need to hear who's behind us saying it. They need to hear your voice, and it takes 5 seconds. And we will start working on getting out bullet points on each bill and sample letters, so that you can just sign your name and hit send.
Right.
It's that easy.
If I wrote my own,
and share it everywhere, even to people you don't think care.
Yes.
Keep sharing it. I ended up sharing, once I accidentally hit send on an email. It was when we were doing Jack's Law, and I hit send to, like, somehow, I don't even know, it's so technologically horrible, but it sent that letter to everyone in my entire email list. And some of those people are not exactly cannabis people. But guess who wrote letters? The people I thought would never cared read the material and were totally down to help, and they forwarded me a copy of the email that they sent to their legislator. Mm-hmm. Also, powerful. You can, if you can get to the Capitol, one of us will probably be there, and we will meet you there, and we will help you go and talk to your representative or senator. You can just drop in. That's your right. You are their public constituents. Building. You hired them.
Well, education is the key, because we can't just assume that everybody knows everything.
They don't know anything.
Our new representatives and senators coming in don't always know everything that we know. We're in the center of this space, so we feel we know it. We sometimes assume that everyone knows, but there is a lot of misinformation out there, and it is important that we get out there, boots on the ground, talking to them, educating them, in an enlightened way.
There are also people out there on the opposite side of the fence as we are, giving that false information, and we need to be right behind them to refute what they just said. I don't know how many times have we been in the Capitol, and we can hear them talking to the lobbyist is talking to whatever senator or representative, and they're saying totally wrong information, no idea what they're talking about, making stuff up. That's common, making stuff up.
And they are getting paid
And
to
yeah.
do so.
So we need to get in there and go, wait,
people,
no, that was totally wrong. This is right. And there's more of us than there are lobbyists, so we can fight that when they do that.
And our testimonies matter, and our experiences, and that also changes hearts and minds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your experience, when you share your experience, people take it to heart. You wouldn't think so, but they do. Absolutely.
Right. So last year we killed it in the House with the autism bill. Huge. So then we went to the Senate hearing. We're like, yeah, we got this. It didn't go that way.
It
That
was a little
Senate,
tougher.
You were there. That
Yeah.
Senate hearing was rough. And I left in tears. I was like, it's going to die in the Senate. It's going to die in this committee. And the head of the committee was really hard. He was not ready to really embrace this subject. And so we talked about it, and he just wasn't ready. And I almost stalked him. Like, I would stay after one of his hearings, and I'd be like, hey, let me tell you about this. And he wanted to get it. So then I knew a few people in his district, a handful of people. My husband's boss, some good friends of mine, some parents. So probably 3 or 4, maybe 5 people. They all made it an effort to reach out to this senator. And then guess what? When we had our next hearing, he not only voted for it, he co-authored the bill. And this is not someone that we expected to get on board. So I know it sounds cliche, but like Stacey said, your voice matters. And these couple people explained it, converted, and educated, like Amber said.
Right.
Your voice matters.
Yeah. So, well, and a lot of people feel nervous about, doing that, but it's really, I'm a little seasoned, so it's not a big deal for me.
It's like Cajun seasoning.
Yeah, baby. But I mean, I've been an advocate since I gave birth the first time and had a child with a learning disability. That turns you into an advocate.
Yes.
What I want to see changes made is more respect and awareness to these precious children that are at this Capitol. I've been at the Capitol, and y'all have too. It's been 10:30, 11 o'clock, midnight.
Yes.
Yes. And it felt like they were weeding us out to see who, and I've had to leave.
Yeah.
I couldn't hang, a couple of times.
So when they run a bunch of bills together that they're going to hear, and they push the cannabis stuff later and later into the night, and so the people who have sick kids with them,
Well,
patients.
we've learned on that one though, because we've started requesting that people who are testifying who have kids go first. We learned we got that going on last session.
But sometimes if they put the cannabis bill last at the end of the agenda, and I think it comes down to the committee chair that has the discretion to that, and all we can do is educate them, and we'll have some committee chairs that are friendlier and some that maybe aren't, and there's not really. I mean that's definitely something that we can all work on together. And I mean these bills. It starts tomorrow. The next 120 days it's going on.
Ooh, sisters, y'all ready?
Down. I will be there.
I'll be there.
It is a public building. You can follow me around and watch everything I'm doing to make sure it's on the up and up. I mean, it is. These are the priorities that we're working on, and they matter. And we need your help.
And your voice matters.
And we all have the right to be there.
And it makes a difference. Please show up.
Absolutely.
We're just 5 people with Melanie.
Well, Cindy was working in the Capitol, but we just walked in the building and started talking and
owning the place.
Owning the place, yeah. I have to say so. But we got bills passed because we walked in, and it's our right to do it. And we found the support of each other. You have the support of us. Walk in.
Can you do that in other states too?
Oh yeah.
See, that's how you get it done in other states.
It's very accessible here in Colorado.
It is a lot more than I've heard in other states.
Absolutely. We have a lot of citizen activists that are very involved, that are out there that don't get paid for a living, and certainly that you hear a lot of stories from that. It's been really an honor and a privilege to kind of get to help try to rally some of those voices the last couple of years and go through that with this experience. But this building is accessible. All of the information is publicly accessible on the website in terms of when the committees are happening and where. We're just trying to make it easily accessible so that it's not expecting moms with children that have special needs to be able to go through and track every day to figure out when it's coming or whatever is going on. So that will certainly be able to do. And also from the sunset process, there's going to be a lot of negotiation and amendments and meetings that are happening behind the scenes before committees are happening, and want to keep that as transparent as possible and people updated on that's going on. So I think these will have to be different channels and vehicles for that, because those won't be committee hearings that will be scheduled, that there'll be meeting after meeting, there will be stakeholder meetings that will be called likely by sponsors.
You're a stakeholder, by the way.
Yes, you're a stakeholder. They'll be called, and we'll have sometimes an hour, but oftentimes a day or two to know when it's happening and to get people there. So it will be important to keep people engaged.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that we got to meet together and come on the airship.
I know.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Well, this
Consider
is
myself
exciting.
lucky. Like, believe it or not, you don't get into it because you just work with a bunch of smart, beautiful women. But it's really kind of look who's at the Capitol, right? Doing this. It's like one of the coolest things about being in this industry. So
thank you for always supporting the community.
Yeah, we
do.
appreciate you guys.
We really appreciate
Love to
it.
keep doing updates from the airship whenever.
Please do.
Yes.
I mean, that's why it's here. It's we're documenting the end of prohibition of cannabis, and we're just we're educating people.
Yeah.
We're educating people. And anyway, I did once again a horrible job of calling people out who were watching us, and so I'm gonna.
Who we got going on?
Let's see. We've had
Thank you again to Melanie. We missed you.
Yes.
Yes.
Missed you, Melanie.
Camino, Brian Rainwater, LS Love, Melanie. Yes.
Is Melanie on?
No. Oh wait. Maybe. Let's see. LS Love, Brian Rainwater.
Oh, I see.
Oh, Sam Prock,
Kate.
Kate.
Sam.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
Elena.
Jason Barker, Kate Curley, Mel, Mike Webb from Kansas, and Elena. I wonder. I didn't know that
Justin
she joined.
Duncan.
I talked about you, Elena, briefly. And Justin Duncan, Michael Miller, and Cheryl Thomas Cumberg.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really.
Yes.
Thanks for hanging out.
Go spread the word. It's this is what's going on this year in Colorado, and it's go spread the word. I just learned a bunch of new stuff now.
And Travis, did you put all our names up on there so if
Yes,
people have
ma'am.
questions, they can contact us.
Yeah.
Hit us up. Send me a message.
And if you could also, if you're in any wellness, cannabis, whatever type of outreach group, share these videos. We absolutely share these videos because Facebook, Instagram has a huge censorship on, on our industry.
Right.
And if we do it organically, they can't stop us,
Yeah.
And a lot of groups have rules of no selling.
Right.
Well, we didn't sell anything.
No. We're sharing information.
We're sharing information.
Follow Coloradans for Safe Access too on Facebook.
Right.
I believe that's correct. So Melanie, you can help
Got
us on the
them
post
tagged,
if it's not. But then follow that because you'll be getting updates from there as well. So
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Well, I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thanks
you,
everybody
guys.
for tuning in. We will see you Tuesday with Michael Miller, and is it Eschino or Eschino? What's Bob's? How do you say his last name? From Incredibles. It's that's going to be
think
pretty
it's
cool.
Eschino.
Eschino. I've always said Eschino, but Michael said Eschino. So anyway, so Tuesday at about 10:30, Michael and Bob and I will talk about more of the business side of this movement that we've got, and then
nice.
that's it.
That'll be
Thank
a
you.
good one.
Yes. Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Bam.